The Creo Swarm, a 75% custom mechanical keyboard that's been creating a lot of hype in the Indian market. And for good reason. In the past, if you wanted a custom keyboard, you had to go out your way and import one. But this is actually made by an Indian company. And just like the Icarus, their latest gaming mouse release, Creo is not holding back. For starters, I love the design of the Swarm. No aggressive lines, no sharp edges. It's almost got a retro vibe to it, and I really like this clean and simple design. You've got smooth finishing throughout the keyboard and rounded corners. And the Swarm is available in 4 colors, which makes this really versatile. You can get it in all black, a all white, a black purple, and a white purple like the one I have here. And you can use this in your gaming setup, but also, like I do, in a productivity-based work setup. And for your switch options, you have to choose between Huano Speed Yellows and GTMX Sense, but we'll talk about the switches in a bit. And in terms of build quality, although the keyboard is made out of plastic, it has some heft to it. It feels dense, unlike some of the cheap keyboards which are going to feel hollow and empty because there is a bunch of things going on the inside. But we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, the Swarm weighs about 850 grams, which isn't that portable, but it does make the keyboard feel more premium. Now, if you are going to take your keyboard on the go, I would suggest you get something like a 60% keyboard or 65% keyboard. The Swarm is more like keep it on your desk and use it kind of keyboard. Now, one of my favorite features about the Swarm is actually on the back. So you see this 2.4G receiver. The slot for it is actually magnetic, so it makes it super hard to lose this receiver now. And you have 2 levels of height adjustment. So there is this tiny kickstand that's gonna raise the keyboard up a little bit, and then if you want to prop it up in a more ergonomic position, you can use the second level of kickstand. Now, I usually just use the keyboard on the default height, but again, it's there if you need it. The Swarm also has tri-mode connectivity, so you can use it with the 2.4G receiver, with Bluetooth, and also you can use it wired with the included USB Type-C cable, which is pretty high quality and over 5 feet. So even if your PC is not on your desk, if it's on the floor a little far away, you're not going to have any issues. And something to note here is that you're going to get 1000 Hz polling rate with the 2.4G receiver and the wired mode, and the polling rate drops to about 500 Hz for Bluetooth. But with Bluetooth, you can connect the Swarm to up to 3 devices at once simultaneously, and you can switch between the devices using the FN and the first 3 numeric keys. And I personally use the Swarm with Bluetooth connected to my Mac, and the connection has been flawless so far. Another thing that Creo always gets right is the volume knob. So the Swarm also has a volume knob. It's made out of metal, feels really good, and there's actually 2 versions to it. So you can get the GTMX Sense switches, and you're gonna have a more tactile knob, so you can feel the notches, you can feel the clicks. But with the switches I have here, which are the Huano Speed Yellows, you get a more linear volume knob. But this is really good to have. You can change your volume. You can also mute your PC on the go by just pressing the knob, which makes things really convenient. Now, when it comes to switches, the Swarm can be configured with either the Huano Speed Yellows or the GTMX Sense switch. The Huano Speed Yellows are a linear switch, so very similar to your red switches, and the GTMX Sense is a soft tactile switch, which can be compared to your browns. I personally got the Swarm with the Huano Speed Yellows, and boy oh boy are these switches fast. There is very less actuation force needed, very little pre-travel. And to keep it simple, if you need a keyboard to play competitive esports games, especially first-person shooters, CS2, Valorant, and don't want to make the jump to Hall effect magnetic switches, this can get the job done. Now, I can't speak much about the GTMX Sense switch since I haven't used it, but it should be very similar to other soft tactile switches on the market. But both these switches, no matter which one you get, are going to be pre-looped. Now, when it comes to stabilizers, they are pre-looped from the factory. So the Swarm is using your average run-of-the-mill plate-mounted stabs, which are better compared to the Hive, which I tested previously, but I feel there is more room for improvement here. These are not bad or terrible in any way, but some of the bigger keys like the spacebar, the shift, the enter key can have a better sound and be more stable. So that's that. And the Swarm is also very easy to customize and mod. Now, most people buying this keyboard will never feel the need to open it up, but if you are that curious soul, there's 8 screws on the back. You open them up and the top plate comes off. Detach the 2 cables, one for the logic board, one for the battery, and you have yourself a naked swarm. Now, there is a lot going on the inside. For starters, this is a gasket mounted design, and there's 4 layers of sound absorption. So there is a flexible polycarbonate sheet followed by a layer of foam. Below that is your PCB, followed by another layer of foam, and last but not the least, there is a silicone pad which does most of the heavy lifting when it comes to sound absorption because it is a dense material. Now, if you don't want to get too technical, all of these layers are there to reduce the hollowness of the keyboard and also the metallic ping that you get when you tap on a switch with cheaper keyboards. And it's all working. And here is a sound test for you guys. The Swarm is also hot swappable, and you can use any 3 or 5 pin switch on the market, and modding and hot swapping is super easy. The switches come off very easily without much force, and if you are into keyboard modding, you're gonna enjoy the Swarm. But when it comes to keycaps, Creo has nailed it here. They're using really high quality double shot PBT keycaps with a cherry profile, which makes customization very easy, and the legend on them is really sharp, very crisp, and I personally had no visibility issues, but because the way these keycaps are designed, they don't let light to pass through them, so the RGB on this keyboard is kind of pointless. And I don't mind that since I have a lot of ambient lighting in my setup, and this is not a deal breaker. You can change the keycaps. Creo might even offer a version with pass-through keycaps, but I personally feel that custom enthusiast level keyboards shouldn't come with RGB in the first place. Like, I've been using this keyboard for the past month or so, and during my testing, not once have I turned on the RGB. But your opinions might be different, and if you are into RGB, Creo has a software for this keyboard which I'll link down below. You guys can download it. It has a bunch of things that you can customize, so you can remap the buttons if you wanted to, you can create macros, you can play around with the RGB, so brightness, effects, colors, all of that jazz, and you can also change the tap sensitivity on this keyboard and the debounce delay, which I really like. So you have some advanced level features which were really nice to see. When it comes to battery life, the Swarm has a 4000 mAh battery, and Creo claims a battery life of 270 hours with all the lights turned off, and they claim a 20-hour battery life with all the lights turned on at full brightness, basically white color, and that's actually kind of accurate. So you can see the difference between RGB off and RGB on when it comes to battery life. I personally use the keyboard with the 2.4G receiver on my gaming PC and with Bluetooth on my Mac, and on Bluetooth the battery life has been great. Like, I haven't had to charge this keyboard for like 20 or so days, and I've been using it for 3 to 4 hours every day without any issues. But let's say you're using it with the 2.4G receiver at 1000 Hz, the battery life is going to decrease. But as long as you keep the RGB off, battery life is going to be great. But occasionally if you do turn on RGB, it shouldn't be an issue. But just know that if you keep the RGB on always, you're gonna have less battery life. Now, talking about my personal experience with the Swarm, I used it both for gaming as well as work. On my gaming setup, I used it alongside the Creo Icarus. This is their latest gaming mouse. A review for this is coming soon, by the way. And on my work setup, I used it alongside the MX Master 3S from Logitech. And the Swarm works great for both. So for gaming, the 75% form factor comes in very clutch, very handy. I can tilt the keyboard and have more space for my mouse movements since I am a low sensitivity player. And you also have the arrow keys. So when you're done gaming, you don't have to use stupid combos with the function key just to go up and down on a browser. And for my work setup, I was using it with Bluetooth on my M1 Mac Mini, and just like other Creo products, I had no issues. This works flawlessly on a Mac, all the shortcuts, all the keys work, so no issues there. And I had a lot of fun editing videos and doing normal keyboard stuff. When it comes to pricing, the Swarm was originally launched at a price of 6,000 rupees, or about $70, but during the ongoing festive sale, there was a bunch of discount and you could get the Swarm for as low as 5,000 rupees. And for that price, this keyboard is a steal. Like, you could buy a keyboard from big name brands like Logitech, Razer, Corsair for the same amount of money, and that's not gonna come anywhere close to the kind of value that this keyboard is offering. And the Swarm makes me genuinely excited for future Creo products. Magnetic Hall effect switches, maybe? Fingers crossed, but I'm really looking forward to see what's next.